You are folding laundry or maybe setting the table for supper, and you glance down at your hands. The skin at the very tips of your fingers is peeling, not cracked, not bleeding, just lifting at the edges in small pale flakes, the way bark peels from a juniper branch after a dry summer. You have rubbed lotion into it. You have drunk more water. You have tried different soap. Nothing changes. If you want to understand why those peeling tips keep coming back, do not look at the lotion shelf, and do not blame the dry air or the dish soap. Look deeper. Somewhere most women over 50 would never think to check, and what you find there may change far more than just your fingertips. I am so glad you found this today, my friend. My name is Wellness Maddie. What I am about to share with you could improve the quality of every morning ahead of you. I mean that in a specific way. I am talking about staying strong enough for the things that matter most. I am talking about holding your granddaughter's hand on a long walk, feeling steady and warm in your own skin, without any hesitation about what she feels when she reaches for your fingers. This deficiency, when it goes unaddressed long enough, quietly depletes the strength of your nerves, your blood, and your mind. It does this slowly, over months and years, and the hands are often the first place it shows. Most doctors will not bring this up at your next visit. There is no name protocol for it on the prescription pad. Appointments end before that conversation can begin, and the clinical guidelines do not flag this kind of depletion until the damage has already gone deep. Pay close attention here. My name is Wellness Maddie. I have been keeping an apothecary and a garden in the high desert hills of northern New Mexico for more than 40 years now. My knowledge came first from my mother's kitchen and from my grandmother's drying racks, hung with chamomile and osha root each autumn. It deepened over decades of study with the curanderas of Taos and Santa Fe, the herb gardeners of the Southwest, and the old women who kept the seeds when no one else did. I share what I know here because I have watched too many folks, the neighbors who come to my garden gate, suffer through symptoms the old plant wisdom addresses simply and directly. My grandmother carried a teaching through all the years I knew her, passed down through the Italian country women of her family line before her. All illness begins in the belly. She meant the whole inner garden, the terrain that receives food, breaks it down, and decides what the body gets to keep. Your gut governs your immunity, your inflammation, your hormone balance, and, as we are about to see together, your ability to absorb the very vitamins your skin and nerves depend on. My grandmother's hands were supple and strong well into her late 70s. Her mother's hands were the same. The women who taught me, the seed keepers and herb gatherers of the old families along the Rio Grande foothills, rarely saw the kind of peeling, splitting fingertips that show up so often in women over 50 today. They ate differently, yes, but more than that, they understood their bodies as living soil that needed tending from the inside out. When skin complained, the first question was always what the body was asking for. They tended from the inside before they reached for anything outside. In 4 generations of those women, brittle, peeling hands were taken seriously as a message from the blood, one the body was waiting to have answered. Before we go further, I want to tell you something, sister. There is one piece of what I am about to share that surprises nearly every person I speak with at my garden gate. 9 out of 10 folks assume the answer to peeling fingertips lives somewhere they have already looked. The order I am going to walk you through matters because each layer builds on the one before it, and the most important piece will not make sense without the foundation underneath it. Stay with me all the way through. The final part of this video may be the piece that has been missing all along. Before we go any further, I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment below and tell me your age. And tell me this too. How long have you been dealing with peeling or rough fingertips? And have you ever connected it to anything you were eating or not eating? I read every single comment on this channel, and your answers shape which topics I cover next. Every word you share matters here. Here is what we are covering today, my friend. First, I am going to show you the real reason that no amount of lotion has fixed what is happening at the tips of your fingers, and why this symptom deserves more attention than most people give it. Then I am going to walk you through the 3 forces inside your body right now that are making this deficiency worse with every passing year. We are going to look at the hidden reasons so many women over 60 are depleted without knowing it, even women who eat carefully and take a daily vitamin. After that, I am going to share the recovery layers, specific, practical, drawn from the old plant traditions of the Southwest. And finally, the masterpiece, the single most important shift for rebuilding the nutrient terrain that aging quietly strips away. One quick ask before we begin. If this channel has been useful to you, I would be grateful if you took 2 seconds and subscribed. A handful of neighbors wrote in recently and mentioned they had been watching for months without realizing they had never hit the button. It costs nothing, and it helps this information reach more seniors who need it. Let us begin with what you are actually noticing. The peeling happens at the very tips of the fingers, most often the index finger and thumb first. The skin does not hurt much, but it does not heal either. You may have noticed it cycles, a bit worse in dry weather, somewhat better in summer, but never fully gone. Your nails may have developed fine ridges or a slight dullness. You may notice your fingertips feel vaguely numb or tingly some mornings, especially before you have had coffee and warmed your hands around the mug. And you have likely told yourself it is the season, the soap, or simply the passage of time. Your hands are showing you something real. The women of the old Southwest plant tradition had a phrase for it. The hands are the report card of the blood, and the blood has something to say. The cause most commonly at work in this picture, one that blood work at an annual physical often misses because the reference range is drawn too broadly, is a deficiency in vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is what scientists call cobalamin. It is the nutrient your body uses to build healthy red blood cells, to maintain the protective sheath around every nerve fiber in your body, and to manufacture the DNA inside every cell that regenerates your skin. When B12 is low, your red blood cells become large and misshapen, unable to carry oxygen efficiently. Think of it the way you would think of a delivery truck with a flat tire. The cargo is still loaded, the driver is still trying, but nothing is arriving on time, and the tissues farthest from the center, your fingertips, show the delay first. Here is what makes this particularly significant for women over 50. After 50, the stomach lining begins to thin. The cells that produce intrinsic factor, the protein that escorts B12 from your food into your bloodstream, begin to slow down or stop altogether. This is a biological shift that comes with age, and it means that even if you are eating animal proteins and eggs regularly, you may not be absorbing the B12 they contain. You can be eating with great care and still be starving at the cellular level. Research scientists studying this pattern have spent years arriving at what the old plant women of this region already knew from watching their neighbors age. By 60, somewhere between 35 and 40% of adults show evidence of low B12 status when measured carefully. The old ones had watched tired blood show up in tired hands for generations. The laboratories simply took longer to count it. If your fingertips are accompanied by persistent numbness, significant fatigue, or changes in your balance, please speak to your doctor about having your B12 levels tested directly. 3 forces are working against your B12 levels right now, and most women over 50 are dealing with at least 2 of them without knowing it. The first is the medication overlap. Metformin, prescribed to tens of millions of Americans for blood sugar management, is one of the most consistently overlooked B12 robbers in mainstream medicine. Proton pump inhibitors, the acid-reducing medications sold for everyday heartburn relief, do the same. They lower stomach acid, and stomach acid is what you need to release B12 from food. If you take either of these regularly, your B12 levels deserve monitoring. A good pharmacist can walk you through this, and I encourage you to ask. Barbara was 74 years old, a retired pharmacist from Toledo, Ohio, who had been watching her own fingertips peel for 2 years before she mentioned it to me. What had been overlooked? She had been managing her blood sugar with metformin for 11 years, and no one had thought to track her B12 alongside it. When her levels were finally checked, they sat well below even the conventional threshold. She added sublingual methylcobalamin each morning and addressed the dietary gaps alongside it. Within 10 weeks, the cycling had slowed by more than 50%. She told me afterward, with that dry smile she had, "Maddie, I spent 40 years dispensing that medication. It never once occurred to me to check what it was quietly taking from me." The second force is the gut terrain itself. Picture a garden that has gone too long without tending. The organisms that keep the soil alive have thinned out. The ground is still there, but something is missing underneath. After 60, the diversity of beneficial bacteria in the gut declines in ways that meaningfully affect how the intestinal lining absorbs nutrients, including B12. A compromised gut means compromised absorption, regardless of what you are swallowing. And this brings me to something important, my friend, that the old seed keepers understood long before any laboratory gave it a name. By our early 60s, a significant portion of the beneficial bacteria we were born with has been lost. Some researchers now suggest more than half is gone. What most people do not know is that a probiotic alone is not enough to restore this terrain. Probiotics need prebiotic fiber to survive and multiply. And probiotics, working alongside prebiotic fiber, produce compounds called postbiotics, the actual healing molecules that repair the gut lining and restore absorption capacity. Picture it as a garden. The seeds are the probiotics, the soil preparation is the prebiotic fiber, and the postbiotics are what the healthy garden actually grows. All three have to be present and working together, or the gut stays thin and the body keeps struggling to receive what it needs. The third force is the dietary gap. Animal proteins, organ meats, shellfish, and eggs are the richest food sources of B12. Many women over 50 have quietly reduced these foods over the years. Cholesterol concerns, changing appetite, convenience, budget. This narrows the supply at exactly the time when the absorption capacity is already strained. Now that you can see the forces at work, let us build the recovery from the ground up, in layers that work together. The first layer is food. The richest sources of B12 include eggs, especially the yolk, sardines eaten with the soft small bones, quality beef liver, clams, and salmon. 2 or 3 eggs each morning, a small slice of liver once a week, a can of sardines at lunch on Thursdays. These were weekly staples in the old kitchens of this region. Bring them back with intention. The second layer is the cofactor most people overlook, folate, the natural form found in dark leafy greens, lentils, and chickpeas. B12 and folate function as working partners inside the body. One without the other is like building a stone wall with mortar and no stones. The greens cooked down on a Sunday, collards, mustard greens, Swiss chard, were delivering both quietly and reliably, generation after generation. Let me stop here for a moment, because the question I hear most often from the folks who write to me is what they can actually do to support the gut terrain we have been talking about. The product I have landed on is called BoochBod. It is a kombucha gummy, not a pill, and that matters for those of us who already have enough capsules on the shelf. It contains all 3 layers in a single formula: prebiotic fiber, a clinically studied probiotic strain called lactospore, and a postbiotic called postbiotics LM1004 that works directly on the gut lining. It also contains dandelion root, the same root my grandmother dried on her kitchen windowsill each autumn, alongside slippery elm, an old healing herb I have kept in my apothecary for decades. Over 30,000 people are using it now. The link is in the description. And as always, speak to your doctor before starting any supplement. And now we arrive at the most important piece of this entire protocol. Everything we have covered, the food sources, the cofactors, the gut terrain work, all of it leads here. Because the single most significant shift you can make after 50 is understanding how the body receives what it is given and ensuring that the receiving channel is open. The stomach produces less intrinsic factor as it ages, but there is a second pathway the body has for absorbing B12 that bypasses intrinsic factor entirely. When B12 is dissolved under the tongue, it can be absorbed directly through the mucous membranes of the mouth into the bloodstream, skipping the compromised gut absorption pathway altogether. This is the body's backup channel. After 60, it may be your primary one. Here is what this looked like for someone I know well. Frances was 68 years old, a retired seamstress from Savannah, Georgia, who came to my garden after nearly 3 years of cycling through hand creams and frustration. Her fingertips had been peeling since before her retirement, and her fingers ached in the mornings when she first tried to work them open. What had been overlooked? Her blood work had never specifically checked B12, and she had been taking a proton pump inhibitor for acid reflux for 7 years. We shifted her food sources first: eggs each morning, liver once a week, sardines at lunch a few times each week. We added sublingual methylcobalamin dissolved under the tongue each morning before anything else, and we addressed the gut terrain so her body could absorb what she was taking. Within 6 weeks, Frances noticed the tingling in her fingertips had reduced by roughly half. By month 3, the peeling had decreased by about 80%, and she was sleeping more soundly than she had in years. She wrote to me with this: "Maddie, I thought this was just aging. I had no idea my body was asking for something specific that I had stopped giving it." Now let me be precise about what to look for, because the form matters. Choose methylcobalamin, not the form called cyanocobalamin. Methylcobalamin is the form the body actually uses. Cyanocobalamin, the form found in most standard multivitamins, requires a conversion step inside the body before it can be used, and that conversion becomes less reliable as we age. A 1,000 to 2,000 microgram sublingual tablet dissolved under the tongue each morning before coffee, before food. The mucous membrane absorbs it in minutes. The B12 goes directly into the bloodstream. Combine this with your folate-rich greens, your egg yolks, your restored gut terrain, and you are addressing the deficiency through all 3 pathways at once. You are feeding the blood, healing the lining, and opening an absorption route that the years have not yet closed. A word of care here: if you have been experiencing persistent numbness, significant fatigue, or changes in your balance alongside these skin changes, please speak to a doctor before adjusting supplements on your own. B12 levels can be tested directly, and in some cases, higher dose support may be appropriate under medical guidance. After more than 40 years of watching what actually works in women past 60, here is what the old protocols and careful observation both agree on. Tip 1. Time it right. Take any sublingual B12 in the morning before coffee, not alongside it. Coffee can interfere with absorption through the mucous membranes. 10 minutes of quiet separation before that first sip makes a real difference. Tip 2. Pair with fat. B12 works in partnership with fat-soluble nutrients. The yolk of an egg, a teaspoon of olive oil drizzled over your greens, helps the related nutrient uptake proceed more fully. Tip 3. Consistency over heroics. A moderate daily dose absorbed reliably will outperform a high weekly dose that the body barely processes. Show up every morning. That is the whole strategy. Tip 4. Mind your zinc. Zinc depletion accelerates the decline of the stomach lining cells that produce intrinsic factor. A small handful of dry roasted pumpkin seeds every other day supports that lining. I have kept a jar of them beside the stove in my apothecary kitchen for 30 years. Mistake 1. Relying on a standard multivitamin for B12. Most multivitamins contain cyanocobalamin, a synthetic form that requires a conversion step the aging body handles with decreasing reliability. The blood work may show B12 within range while the deficiency quietly continues. The form matters as much as the dose. Mistake 2. Treating the skin and ignoring the blood. The skin will stay compromised until the deficiency is addressed from the inside, and no amount of topical care will substitute for what the blood is missing. Moisturizing has its place. It is not the answer here. Mistake 3. Stopping the protocol too soon. Many folks begin to see improvement after 3 to 4 weeks and conclude the problem is resolved. The nerve coating and the skin barrier take 3 to 4 months to rebuild at the cellular level. Early improvement means you are on the right path. The path is not finished. I want to take a quiet moment before we close. The reason you are here today is not really about your fingertips. It is about the life you want to keep living, fully and with confidence, in this body that has carried you through everything. It is the morning you carry your coffee out to the garden while the high desert air is still cool, your hands wrapped around the mug, warm and easy in your own skin. It is sitting at the table with your grandchildren, reaching for their hands across the dishes without a second thought, simply present and unhurried and whole. It is never too late. I have watched women at 75 and 80 begin these practices and rebuild what they had written off as the simple cost of time. The body at this stage of life is asking to be heard. The peeling at your fingertips is the whisper before the shout. Listen to it now, love, while the listening is still easy. You are the one who tends this body. You always have been. Let me lock this in for you. 1. What looks like dry skin at the tips of your fingers is often your body signaling a B12 deficiency that has been building quietly, sometimes for years. 2. After 50, declining intrinsic factor means your stomach may no longer absorb B12 from food the way it once did, regardless of how carefully you eat. 3. 3 forces accelerate the depletion: common medications such as metformin and proton pump inhibitors, a thinning gut microbiome, and reduced dietary intake. Most women over 50 are dealing with at least 2 of them without knowing it. 4. The recovery works in layers. Restore the food sources, add the folate cofactors, rebuild the gut terrain, shift to sublingual methylcobalamin that bypasses the absorption gap entirely. 5. Consistency across weeks and months rebuilds the blood, the nerves, and the skin. Early improvement is a signal to continue, not a reason to stop. If this video was useful to you today, I would ask one small thing. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, and share it with someone who needs it. Send it to your oldest friend, or your sister, or the person who has been rubbing lotion on her hands for years and wondering why nothing ever changes. Leave me a comment below and tell me which piece of today surprised you most, or which step of the recovery you are starting with first. I read every single comment on this channel, and what you share shapes what I create next. If you would like to try BoochBod, the link from earlier is still in the description below whenever you are ready. Thank you for being here with me today, my friend. Take good care of those hands. Take good care of that blood. I will see you in the next one.